Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from DeltaCX.com. We're a full service CX and UX agency and we do training. Check us out. And welcome to Office Hours. Ask Me Anything. Now, I've got the wrong date on the top. Give me a moment to fix that. I am unprepared for my own show. Today is August 17th. Okay, that's fixed. And this is the early Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and we're going to have a late one today. Once a month we do two. Today's we'll have Darren and Dr. Nick. It got rescheduled from last week. In fact, I'd better send them a message on LinkedIn and make sure they are still up for it. But as this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, I am here for about an hour taking your questions. I am happy to take absolutely any question on any topic, and I will always do my best to answer it. If you would like to talk about something unpleasant happening in your world or your work situation, and you would prefer that that information be anonymous, you are welcome to use our anonymous question asking system, which is deltacx.link/ask. And that will take you to basically a one-question survey, and you can ask your question there. I will keep an eye on that since that comes in through my email. And let's write to Darren and Dr. Nick and make sure we're on for tonight. All right. Meanwhile, let's see if we've got any questions coming in. Not yet. And let's see. Whoa. Anybody in the chat room? No, 2 people watching. Yeah, we do these early ones once a month to accommodate people in time zones near me and east of me. So good afternoon, everybody in India, the Middle East. Good evening in Australia, New Zealand, and other parts, of course, of Asia and Africa. So we do it once a month. Other than that, we usually do office hours every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. So I've got no questions. I find sometimes I come here, nothing happens for 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden people show up and they have 2 million questions. So just know if you ask a question, I will answer it. You'll be next. There are no questions before you. No waiting. Anybody have questions on any topic? If not, this is another of my famously boring streams. Let's see if anything's going on. Nope. I don't want to miss anybody's question. Sometimes I get grumpy notes later. You missed my question. Doing my best. One woman show. I think LinkedIn is backed on. Let's see if LinkedIn is working today. Yesterday, LinkedIn was broken. It says I am live. So it looks like LinkedIn sorted itself out. Thank you to the 3 people watching live there. This is usually office hours is 8.5 hours from now? 6:30 p.m. Italy time. So this is the weird one I do once a month at a weird time. And again, usually nothing happens for 10 minutes and then questions flood in. Oh, we should set the countdown timer. If we don't have a question in a certain number of minutes, we should just end the show. If nobody's got questions, no reason for me to sit here or for you to watch me doing nothing. That is definitely boring. The good news is it's free, so I didn't charge you anything to watch me do nothing. But it's definitely a little on the boring side. So let's set a 5-minute timer. And if we don't have any questions in the next 5 minutes, we'll wind it down and say we tried. Let's see. No stream tomorrow. Friday reaction stream. Monday, Michelle Ronson will be here talking about moderated versus unmoderated research. Oh, hello. We've got a question from LinkedIn. Stop the timer. Thank you, LinkedIn person, for your question. It's not showing me your name. It's Gladys. Hello, Gladys, if I'm seeing that correctly. Let me copy and paste that and add it to my list of questions. Thank you for being today's first question. It says, "Hello, Debbie. I'm a content designer, and this is often difficult to help a product designer understand we need to change the way of working. Any recommendations?" Yeah, my recommendation there is we just did a show on content design, UX writing, and content strategy. And I think one of the things we covered was what's the best ways for us to all work together. So I would say if you're having trouble with team collaboration, there's a few things you can do. Certainly speak to whoever is the team leader. Is there an agile coach? Is there a scrum master? Is there a manager? And take a look at things like team charters. Team charters help everybody understand who does what so that we don't have fights later about who's doing what, among other things. So I would say take a look at the idea of a team charter, and also if you are not being correctly worked into the process, because if anybody sees me roll this out, and I've eventually got to do an updated version of this, but hey, there's content analysis and strategy, which is going to be your content design and writing and things like that, though writing often happens throughout this. It's really important that the team understand where this fits in, and that it is important where possible to have content analysis and strategy and some of that content design happening before we even do our information architecture, since it does inform the information architecture. So Gladys, I would say suggest that people watch our show on content design. I'm going to find you that episode number right now because I can't guess it. Okay, episode 119. So people can come to the YouTube channel, which is the Delta CX YouTube channel. They can find in the live stream podcast playlist, they can find episode 119. And I suggest that people watch that to learn more about content strategy, content design, writing, and where it fits in the process. Gladys says she's found it, and thanks. Well, thanks to you. Thanks to you for putting up with a bad process. And definitely, to me, I love working with content people because that's not my strength, it's yours. And so it's a perfect opportunity to partner together. If the product designer doesn't see those opportunities to partner with you, maybe episode 119 can help and you can send it over. Sometimes you do need a manager to get involved or a team leader of some sort. Because it sounds like you're going to have to not just change one person, but you might have to change some of the process and the way that people have approached this in the past. Very often companies incorrectly think that content is just a couple of words we throw on at the end. And when you're trying to do a correct UX process, that's not the way to go. We need to definitely be more strategic about this and be working on that content throughout, both words and media and images and all of that. So that's my medium-sized answer, but thank you for the question. Follow-up questions, of course, are welcome. And I hope that helps. And good luck with your adventures. Come back and tell us how it goes. I will start the 5-minute countdown again and see if anybody else has any questions. Otherwise, we'll just end early. But this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and I'm happy to speak to anything in the CX or UX world, or really just the world in general. Normally, the shows are much more exciting than this. It's not just me drinking water and chewing ice cubes. It's a show with people talking. It certainly will be tonight. So if you are awake, if this works for your time zone, please do come back at 6:30 p.m. Italy today. Not only are we doing another round of Office Hours Ask Me Anything, but we will be doing it with Darren Hood and Dr. Nick. So you'll be able to ask either of us questions or all of us questions, as we often do. It often gets very animated. We are 3 long-winded animated people, and it is good fun. And you will typically see the lightning being set off to remind some of us to not be so long-winded, though that doesn't necessarily work. Aha, we've got an anonymous question coming in, though it's not completely anonymous. They put their name on it. So let's take a look at your question. And you've put your name on it, so I'm going to say your name. I hope that's okay. Okay, I can't put this question on the screen. I can only put YouTube questions on the screen, but I will read it out loud. And thanks to Prashant for the question. It says, as an aspiring UX researcher, I'm a little bit concerned for the future, as almost every other person is becoming a UX designer or a UX researcher while only designing mobile or web page screens and justifying the choices or changes with trends, effects, especially IKEA, laws, specifically Jacob's. Also, many top companies seem to only promote UX as a marketing gimmick, but not as a requirement in products. How would you say these issues can be solved so that the value of UX is seen as a requirement and not as a marketing tool? Well, that's just a fantastic question. And thank you so much for that, Prashant. I'm so happy to hear someone asking such a thoughtful question. Obviously, hey, good morning, Abby. Good morning, or I guess afternoon for where you are. Sorry about that. It's morning here. Prashant, super question. I would like to half jokingly say that the answer to the question is this entire YouTube channel, every article I write, every talk I give at conferences, and everything I do. What you're talking about is exactly what I am informing about or battling against pretty much every moment I'm awake. So I would say that the best answers to your questions are definitely not short answers, because it's not easy to change a lot of our companies who misunderstand UX or don't understand CX. They think CX is, wow, we collected some surveys from people. Now we really know the customer. Ooh, do ya? So I don't have a short answer to the question, but I would say that you'll probably get a lot from, everybody knows what I'm going to say now, episodes 115 and 116. And I've been joking that since I put all of my new slides into those shows, I'm invoking them constantly. So now I'm joking it's a drinking game. I'm having watermelon flavored water. So episodes 115 and 116 are a two-part series that I did where together it's 4.5 hours of content. There are a lot of ideas in there. Now, I can't solve all the things, Prashant. I can't stop people from trying to become UX designers while knowing almost nothing about UX. That's the fault of bad UX education and some people who are going to end up in a difficult situation trying to get the job. I can't fix that. I'm mostly trying to fix companies' approaches to UX, because if companies improve their approaches to CX and UX, then hopefully, if there are people who are trying to be a UX designer but only know how to rip off IKEA, maybe they don't get the job. Maybe they don't get the job because they're not showing strong enough skills and abilities and proficiencies, as I talk about in episode 56 and here in my model of phases of proficiency. If UX is just slapping a bunch of building blocks onto a screen, then I hope eventually companies will have high enough standards to say, well, that's not good enough. That's not what we do here. We need UX and CX work done with science and technique and eventually strategy. So again, your question is all encompassing. It's basically, how do we change the whole world? And I can only say thank you for being one of the people and voices trying to change the whole world. Oh, time's up, but we have questions. I don't have a short answer. It's something we battle every day on this channel, and I hope that every show that we do, including these office hours, including the reaction streams, including the numbered podcast episodes, are giving people a little bit of fresh ammunition every day to address some of these things at their company. I would also say, even though I've written a bunch of, episode 109 was pretty good, but I've written new slides. So I would have to say episodes 115 and 116 are still my most current slides and writings on this topic. And basically, the short version is I think we have to bring customer centricity into companies by shifting away from some of our UX terms and some of our super fluffy UX terms like empathy and delight. Nobody really makes money from empathy and delight. They're going to make make money by building what customers need in a way that matches customers' needs, but that means doing the right research to learn what customers need. So I think that speaking the business's language and showing that good CX and UX are business intelligence and risk mitigation, I'm hoping will be more compelling than, hi, I'm here to make things delightful. That sounds awfully fluffy. Did you bring your crystals with you? So I think we have to shift away from some of that. That is my medium-sized answer there, but please see my other stuff. We've got another question coming in through LinkedIn, and it's Gladys. Hello, Gladys, new friend. So let's copy and paste the Gladys question in and get ready to answer that. Again, I can't put that on the screen, but I will read it out loud. And let's see, Gladys, where you are, because you're in Paris. Okay, and I am in Italy. So Gladys asks, let me get back to my screens. I have too many screens open today, everybody. It says, Debbie, you mentioned being in Italy. Are you mostly working for European companies? What do you think about European UX maturity? Interesting question. So what I've seen so far, Sven, I see your question coming in too. What I've seen so far is that, and sorry, I'm giving you an American pronunciation of Gladys. I'm sorry if there's a better French pronunciation of that. I'm American and tend to pronounce things Americanly or Italianly. So what I'm seeing is that Italy is pretty low UX maturity, other than a couple of big international companies that have offices in Milan and Rome, and a couple of agencies scattered around Italy. This is not a really tech universe. I don't think Italy is a serious tech universe. I see that happening in other cities in Europe where the tech work is stronger, is better paid, is better understood. There's more UX jobs happening there. And I tend to see that mostly in London, Oslo, Berlin, Vienna, Barcelona. Certainly, there's a lot of UX in Romania, Croatia, Serbia, though sometimes it's local to those areas and sometimes it's other countries outsourcing to those areas. So I think the UX maturity across Europe really, really varies. It's really varied. Again, I'm still seeing very little happening in Italy, and then what I've seen in other countries has really just varied. So European UX maturity, probably on par with the rest of the world. A few places are getting it right, and in many places, it's just a giant freaking disaster. And what I've been talking about lately is, in reality, UX maturity is customer centricity. If your company is not customer centric, then it's probably immature. It's probably not doing the right things, not hiring the right people, not utilizing UX correctly, not understanding content design, things like that. So I find that what we've been calling UX maturity is probably customer centricity, because I think if companies were more customer centric, they would probably make better customer focused decisions, which would mean utilizing us better, hiring the correct things better. So thank you for that, and hopefully it's good in Paris where you are, and if not, you can always tell us secretly and privately. So moving on to a question that just came in through deltacx.link/ask, where you are welcome to ask anonymous or non-anonymous questions. Sven asks, how can you find out if a company is mature enough in terms of UX to be a good working place, if you consider to step into that market as a newbie? So we've answered things like this here from time to time, and we're going to do a whole show about it in September. I think it's mid or late September. And really the show's going to be about what questions to ask during an interview. It's really hard to find out before you interview. It's not like there's a website somewhere that says, here's famous companies and how UX mature they are. Also, at many companies, it can vary from project to project or team to team. Some teams really get UX and they've invested in it and they have lots of qualified people working on it. And some teams, even in the same company or sometimes even in another piece of the same product, they didn't invest in UX, and developers still do everything, or product managers do the wireframing, and it's a whole different story. Hold on, I'm going to turn on the fan. It's heating up over here. The fan is just off camera, so now I'm rolling back. So I think that this is mostly things that you would find out either from talking to the people working on those teams or during a job interview. And during a job interview, you can ask questions like, is this the high fan setting or the low fan setting? I feel like I'm being blown away. This is low. Okay, that's low fan. Sorry, everybody. I look like I'm in a wind tunnel. You can ask questions like, what's the UX process here? Do we use UX researchers, or who talks to customers? Very often you'll hear, oh, anyone can talk to customers. Marketing talks to customers. Our engineers talk to customers and ask them what they want. Business analysts talk to customers. So again, you'll start to know how they feel about UX in general and who does UX when you ask questions like this. You can also ask, do UX designers and engineers wait for UX researchers to complete their research so that we can work from that research? Because a lot of you will come to me and ask during office hours, hey, I'm a UX researcher and I'm working on research, but designers are designing and engineers are building. Nobody cares. Nobody's waiting for it. So that would be another way that you could figure out, is this company really investing in UX, or do they think it's sprinkled on at the end, or do they think anybody can do it? You can also ask, again, when you ask the process, you can also ask if they're using what I call fake UX, aspirologies. I call them aspirologies because they're not quite methodologies. They aspire to be, but they suck. Design thinking, design sprints, lean UX, fake democratization. If you hear words like this thrown around, chances are this is not a company that respects UX. I believe that the more you respect a domain, the less you ask the people in that domain to do work by committee. We do not ask product managers to all get together and do a workshop where we all guess at a product roadmap and we vote on our favorite. I think things like that will also help us tell maturity. I think low maturity tends to go with these aspirologies. It tends to go with the wrong people being hired, incorrectly utilized. And some of this we unfortunately can't see until we're working there. And some of this we should be able to tell from some questions we can ask during interviews, or the questions they ask us. If they seem overly focused on how long have you been using Figma, but they don't care if you know anything about information architecture or visual hierarchy or taxonomy, if they don't seem to care about the actual skills that get the job done and they think our work is just done by software and tools, that would be another sign of low maturity, because most of us are tool agnostic. If you had to use Sketch instead of Figma, you'd live. If you had to use Photoshop instead of Figma, you'd be grumpy, but you'd make it through. So whenever I find a company overly focused on software and tools, they probably don't understand what we do and the skills that go into it. So that's a bit of that. But thanks for the question, and welcome, Sven, new subscriber, I think. So this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. We're not quite half done, but I usually stay here until we run out of questions. So I will set the countdown timer to see if anybody has questions in the next 5 minutes. If not, we'll wind down the stream. No reason to keep everybody here for the full hour if there are no questions, but I am keeping an eye on the questions in the YouTube channel and the LinkedIn channel. Thanks to LinkedIn for fixing their API. And I'm also checking for questions that come in through our optionally anonymous system, deltacx.link/ask, and I will take questions from there as well. And let's see. Oh, good. Dr. Nick says he's in for tonight. So hopefully when Darren wakes up, because he is hopefully sleeping at this hour, we will make sure that we're all on for tonight, 6:30 p.m., Three Musketeers doing Ask Us Anything. So, yeah, so that's... I have something hanging on my desk. While y'all think of a question, I'm going to see what I can do about this thing that hangs on my desk. Yes, I have a light behind me. It's Olivia. Do you want to be on today's show? I'm going to pick you up and put you on today's show. Oh. And here we go. It's Olivia the dog. Olivia the Wonder Dog. No. Yes. No. Yes. How about this way? Now do you want to be on the show? Do. Say something? No? Do. Okay, thank you. That's Olivia the dog. You, of course, can follow my dogs on Instagram. So usually the early office hours are super quiet, and that's why we are only having them once a month. But they were originally intended for people in other time zones because not everybody is available at 6:30 p.m. Italy time when I do the late version. Ugh. Let's see how our countdown's going. 2.5 minutes. If we don't see a question in the next 2.5 minutes, we'll just wind it down for today. But remember, I will be back in a handful of hours doing the late version with Darren and Dr. Nick. Shriva says, Jeb, you have a dog. That's nice to see. We actually have 5 dogs. One likes to hang out in the house, and the other ones live outside, and they are all related. So you are welcome to follow my dogs on Instagram. I'll put their handle up on the screen, and because it's Italian, so let's write it down. If you would like to follow my dogs on Instagram, they are Canetti Perfetti. CANETTI PERFETTI. Free. There's no ads there. There's no sponsored thing. They're not celebrity dogs. You are welcome to get to know my dogs on Instagram. But yes, usually Olivia is in the house and the rest of her family, because we're all related, are outside. Some of you also know my dogs from the reaction streams where we put up our rating of 5 dogs out of 5 if we like something, or fewer dogs if we don't like something. So that was Olivia, this one. So yes, plenty of dogs over here. Keeps things fun. Okay, the countdown is on. If we don't have a question in the next minute, I will just wind the stream down so I'm not wasting anybody's time with some dead air. But of course, thanks to the questions we did get today. And remember, I will be back in, 8 hours, doing the evening version with Darren and Dr. Nick. I should get ready and put their names into my system. Darren Hood. Might as well get ready. And this doesn't say Dr. Nick. This says, it does say Dr. Nick. Good. He's already in the system. Save for later. So, yeah, with 20 seconds left and no questions, I will just thank everybody for Sven's back. All right, Sven, let's see what you are asking, and then we might wind it down for today since usually we get a mountain of questions, and right now I'm getting very few questions. So let's see. Sven says, here it is. Let's paste it in. Okay, Sven says, one of my favorite books is Bill Morgridge's Designing Interactions. I haven't read it, despite that the content is more of a history of interaction design, but it seems user research focused. Okay, but it's called Designing Interactions, but it's focused on research. Okay, I haven't read this one. Darren, I think, has read them all. Come back in 8 hours and talk to him. My question would be, if I like what those people did, would it be more user research, design, or both? Or was it a different game when those people did their work? Okay, gonna be hard for me to answer because I haven't read the book. And this definitely sounds like one of those questions where you have to have read the book to have context. And we're getting a long question from Robert. So Robert, I see your questions. My moon says, thank you for other time zones. You're welcome. Robert, I'm gonna copy and paste your question and do that one after Sven's. Thank you. Okay, pasted. Okay, so back to Sven's question. I have not read this book. So again, it's very hard for me to comment, but I would say, just to answer your question more generally, you can do in UX whatever you would prefer. Oh, Sriva says, please put up the dog Instagram again. Okay. Dog Instagram. Canetti perfetti. Sven, you can do whatever in UX that you want. If you find that you prefer research or you're better at it and you don't enjoy design or you're just not that good at it, be a researcher. If you find that you're really strong with information architecture and interaction design, but research kind of isn't your thing, don't do research. Just make sure at all of your jobs you're partnered with a great researcher who can inform you and feed you good information from which you can work. There is definitely no pressure, in at least my perception of the world, for you to have to be great at everything. And so you're saying, if you like doing what these people did, what is it? I don't know. But again, you can carve out what's best for you. If you want to be more T-shaped, you can. If you want to be more of a specialist, you can. I'm not going to tell you there's one right way to do this. The main thing I tend to disagree with other people in this area is many people think that people who are new to UX should start out as generalists, know a little bit of research, know a little bit about information architecture, know a little bit about interaction design and things like that. And we've seen that reflected in boot camp curricula. But I think the problem is that when it comes to getting your first job, I kind of don't want the person who only knows a little about something. I need the person who really freaking knows interaction design. Especially if this is your first job. Now, if it's an internship or an apprenticeship or some sort of setup where they're going to train you, then of course it's not important for you to be really freaking good at it yet. But if this is a proper junior job, and remember, many junior jobs expect you to hit the ground running and get to work on a project with nobody else on the project but you in the world of UX. So ultimately, I think go in the direction that feels right to you. If you feel like you're more of a researcher, start there, learn everything you can, get a lot of practice, upskill there and level up there. If you feel you're more of what I call an architect, which many people call a designer, but I prefer architect because I think of design as pretty things, and so do many other people. So I would say go in the direction that feels right to you, try new things. If they're clicking, great, go with them. And if they're not clicking, that's okay too. You don't have to do all the things. I started out as almost 100% an architect and designer, though not a visual designer. And I eventually got the opportunities to do more research and found I liked it and I was good at it. And so now I'm at this point, I'm probably doing more research than design, but I started out doing, 90% design or architecture and 10% research. And now it's almost the opposite. So, and you can change over time. So Sven, I hope that helps. Now let's get to Robert's LinkedIn question. Thank you, Robert, for joining. It says, hello, Debbie. And firstly, thank you for all of your insightful content and discussions. Thank you. Thanks for following along. As a UXer, particularly a researcher, I often find that the most challenging thing with the discipline during projects or contracts are those which seem to be morally and ethically unsound. For example, being with a team that deliberately launches a product or feature when they know how damaging it'll be for the users. Like the team decision makers have understood the risks of great distress to users but will march ahead with their release dates. Or working to produce insights that are then used to make business decisions that don't have the user's best interests at heart. Could be decisions that end up making some staff redundant, or a new business model that forces users to subscribe to something they don't want, or be kicked off the small platform they love because the business has moved towards subscription being an important target. What are your thoughts on this? Any examples you have, or what we can do to improve this? Robert, super question. We've talked about this a little bit on this channel. It does tend to come up when Darren and Dr. Nick show up at 6:30 Italy time today, 12:30 East Coast US. I didn't check where you are. What I found in this is that once a company has a certain moral or ethical landscape it's really hard to change that. And chances are you weren't hired to change that. You don't have the authority to change that. You don't have the mandate to change that. This is you or a group of your coworkers saying, we don't like the way the company is doing things, and the company probably thinks they're just fine. Now, of course, the company is probably working against the values they told you you're supposed to uphold at the company. The company is probably not holding, I don't know what their values are, but they're usually stuff like integrity. Well, this doesn't sound like it's got good integrity. It's certainly not ethical. It's certainly not going to be good for pretty much any values. I can't think of any values that go with unethical bullshit. So what I find is that usually when someone finds there is a mismatch of ethics or morals in a company, you're probably not staying there long. And chances are it's a two-way street. I mean, hypothetically, they probably wouldn't want you because you're not going to toe the line. You're not going to continue doing this work. You're going to speak out against it. You may even mobilize other coworkers to speak out against it. They probably want people who will say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, yes, whatever. I'll do that. I'll get that for you. And so I would say you're probably not going to stay there very long. I would brush up my CV or resume. I would update my portfolio, and I would aggressively look for other work. And because I would love to tell you that you can change the ethics of a company, but that's really quite rare. And there's a great article on this that I reference in my book that I think everybody should read. And it's Mike Robinson's article on when Superhuman, which is an email client, did something pretty unethical a few years ago. And then when they got caught, they acted like, well, oh, I don't know, we didn't see that coming. And of course, they should have seen it coming, like you're talking about how you can definitely see it coming. So if you Google Mike Robinson Superhuman, it might come up. But what he did was he coined a term that I mentioned in my book and credit him with, decision genome. And he basically says small and large decisions, especially in UX, and especially around dark patterns or slightly unethical things or more unethical things, end up really a snowball at your company, because once you're doing even the smallest dark pattern, that becomes a reason or an excuse or a rationalization for the next one that you do. And these become reasons, excuses, and rationalizations for the larger dark pattern or the more unethical thing that you do. Well, we did this other thing, we might as well do this. Well, sure. So bad choices and unethical decisions start to be precedent, as he puts it, for additional and usually increasingly poor or unethical decisions. That means the company is on a trajectory to be more unethical. And he says in his article, usually this does not change until a lot of leadership is replaced. Because you would have to have a lot of new leadership in who basically deliberately work towards changing the culture, changing the environment, changing the vibe, changing what's been going on there, changing acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior. If I were working there and I had the authority to change this, of course I would be making the changes you're talking about. I would be making sure that ethics are baked into everything we're doing and that we don't try to make $12 off of something that's going to damage people. You're using words like damaging. We're beyond the point of, is it low UX maturity? Are they kind of not customer centric? Are they not totally caring? They're kind of guessing. You're saying that these people are pretty deliberately hurting people or making business decisions to benefit the business that really hurt users. You're not going to be able to change that. I wish I could tell you could. I wish I could say, read this book and watch this video and then go in there and say this. But that's company-wide. And if you do not have the title and authority to change that, you can certainly speak out against it. You can certainly raise the issue. You can certainly look for other coworkers who would like to raise the issue with you. I am a whistleblower at heart, so there's no way I'm going to tell you to just be quiet and just toe the line. I would certainly want to whistleblow that, but then you better have a plan B. So whistleblow it all day long, and I have and I will. But start looking for other jobs, because it could become it could go from a shitty job to a hostile work environment where people are looking to get revenge on you because you pointed out the unethical thing that they did. I have no idea what's going on there, but for now I'm going to assume it's just a giant mess. I'm going to assume it's got revenge and retaliation. I'm going to assume it's got HR who doesn't care and isn't going to support you. I'm going to assume the worst about your job because you've basically said they're doing unethical things fairly deliberately. So I think you're not staying, or not staying for long, because I don't see how you improve it. You didn't break it. You're not going to be able to fix it. Again, unless you are magically the chief experience officer or the head of something, and they said, man, can you please come in and improve our culture? And we did some unethical things. We need to walk that back and fix it and shift the way that we make decisions here. If they give you power to do it, then fix it. But if you're the UX researcher, you don't have that power, and we can't pretend that you do. But I want to thank you for being that type of personality who wants to make something better than it is and leave it better than it is, and not just take orders. I applaud you. I think, I know nothing about you. I have no idea who you are. I should go check LinkedIn. But that's the kind of people we need more of in CX and UX. That we need you. And who are you? Now I want to know who you are. Hello, Robert. Now I'm looking at your LinkedIn. Hi, you've been doing this a while. You know what you're doing. You know the right way. But more than that, you know ethics. And that's important. So, yeah. I don't have a good answer for you there, other than save yourself. And work with others at your company. I often find that we often think it's just me. We often think like, oh God, I shouldn't say anything to anybody. This is probably just me. I'm probably the only one struggling with this or seeing this. Maybe it's just me. And we end up in maybe it's just me there. And we sometimes end up in some sort of imposter syndrome land, especially if you're like, I should be able to change this. Why can't I change this? Well, dude, you're up against the whole system. You're up against something that is systemically or systematically or both unethical. So you didn't break it and you can't fix it. You will feel a little bit better when you find like-minded people. If you can find a way to say to someone who you get the feeling might think like you, go, not sure we're doing the right things here. And again, if you can create a movement, then go ahead. But remember, the movement could turn into something, or it could turn into them trying to get rid of you. I've had that happen at companies where I did raise issues with some poor leadership. And I'm being gentle here. I wouldn't say they were unethical, but they caused pretty much every problem we had was caused by our own UX department leadership. And when I started saying that out loud and raising those issues, I magically started finding my job was really hard to do. And I magically started finding that things were blocked in my way. And I magically started finding that I wasn't on a project for more than 3 weeks because somehow I was needed somewhere else. But then somehow I was not doing a good job because I was never finishing my work, which I was never finishing because they were taking me off the project and putting me on another one. So I would say, feel free to be that whistleblower, because that's me too. But then look for some of the games and the gaslighting and the stuff that tell you that this was not set up for you to win. Robert says, hopefully there's something in the future to make these companies more accountable legally, consumer and user rights, a body or something where they can be named, shamed, and inspired to do better. Yeah, I certainly agree. I don't understand why some of these things are still legal. I don't understand how Facebook can deliberately design a page to be depressing, and for that to be okay. So I agree with you. While I don't want everything over-regulated, I do believe that we have to put human feelings and experiences back at the center of this. And that's not where we are right now. Not even close. Not when these companies can, not when a social media site can sway an election in multiple countries. We're in an ugly spot when that's going on. So I'm sorry I don't have something more uplifting for you, but that's the way I see it. So thank you, Robert, and good luck, and keep us posted. You sound interesting and neato. So there you go. Add me on LinkedIn. I would do it, but I'm in a different window. So any other questions? This is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. I'll be doing it again in about 7.5 hours with special guests Darren Hood and Dr. Nick, also answering your questions live. You can send in your questions ahead of time if you'd like at deltacx.link/ask, and you just mark it as being for the 6:30 program, not this 10 a.m. program. And we'll make sure we queue up your question tonight, and it will be one of the first ones we answer. Shrivas says, so much knowledge to gain from your streams, Debbie. Thanks. Well, thank you, Shrivas. And good luck to your adventures as you've been keeping us posted in Slack on some of your wild job-seeking adventures. Everyone check out Shrivas. He's looking for a job. So, unless I wasn't supposed to say that, then we have to edit this. So this is Office Hours. If we don't have any other questions or follow-up questions, then we can wind down a little bit early. Again, I'll be back at 6:30 p.m. Italy time, 5:30 p.m. for some of you in London. I think that's 10 at night, or is it 11 at night in India? Someone help me out. Are you 3.5 hours ahead of me or 4.5? Hold on. Oh, I put an India clock on my phone. 2:16 p.m. in Mumbai. That sounds like 3.5 hours. Yeah, because when we change our clocks in the fall, we become 4.5 hours apart. So happy lunchtime to everybody in India. Excuse me. Shriva says it is not a secret that he's looking for work. So yes, people go hire him. Check him out. Shrivas Sundar. Find him on LinkedIn. I think he's got a middle name on LinkedIn, right? Or a second surname on LinkedIn. So happy afternoon to everybody. I hope to see everybody again when we do this again, though it is much more of a party once we get Darren and Dr. Nick here and set off some of our effects. I've got some new effects that I think I'll be premiering this week. That's how I spend the money y'all donate to the channel. I buy more video effects so that the show is more fun. So it's a little bit of it's a reinvestment. And I buy chocolate chips because they're delicious. All right, so I think I'll wind this down, but again, I do hope to see everybody. Yes, he says, Shrivas Madhapusi Sundar. Good, look for him, hire him. I haven't worked with him, but he seems very nice, so check him out. And there you go. And probably Robert, too. Everyone check out Robert because he needs a job, too. Or he might, I don't know. He might stay where he is, he might go, but I kind of want to see him in a better place. That's just me superimposing onto him, being a temporary mom figure. So I hope to see everybody back tonight for the other office hours, which is much more of a wild party. There will be swearing, there might be drinking, and we hope if it's daytime where you are not drinking, but you can be swearing. And again, send in your questions ahead of time, deltacx.link/ask, and you'll be among the first that we ask to Darren and Dr. Nick when we're back at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. So for now, I'm going to wind this down, and I will catch everybody soon. Have a great 7.5 hours until I see y'all later. And wear your mask and stop having parties. See you later. Bye. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are